Yo guys, it's your homie Xenopan. I'd like to welcome y'all to another Skyforge video, and in this guide we'll be going over symbols for each class. So that way in any group you have those Gucci symbols for that mad DPS and mad sustain. Keep in mind this guide is for those who are new to the game, and if you are a veteran then maybe a different perspective might be a good thing for you. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. And first up on the list, folks, we're going to be going over our supports. And as you guys can see, my support classes are pretty much the same except for my Lightbinder has emblems of mercy and my alchemist has emblems of speed. It's very situational with both of them. The reason why I have emblems of mercy, which heals people around you, is because they have no way to heal, and the reason why I have emblems of speed is so that way my alchemist has more survivability running around the map and buffing each person. So that's what I recommend for the first tree, guys. And for the second tree, I recommend emergency maneuver dodge for when you're in a messed up situation, you're about to get bitch smacked by a boss or just something and you're about to die. It gives you that extra dodge, you know, for that next 24 seconds. So it's pretty dope. I really recommend getting that. And for our third symbol, I recommend rising from the dead, because as an alchemist and as a Lightbinder, people depend on you for those support buffs that buff damage, and those are really a necessity for, you know, bursting down a boss really quick. So once per fight the character can resurrect for 25 seconds with 30% of the health. I highly recommend this. It's good to get that, you know, sustainability, survivability, so that way they can still depend on you if you die that, and they don't have to waste a revive item on you. For the fourth symbol, I recommend protective dome. Protective dome is really good, especially if you're an alchemist and or Lightbinder, and especially if you don't want to do that much damage, you know, because you're not going to do that much damage to begin with, you know, but the alchemist does do shit tons of damage if used right. But with protective dome, once you buff everybody, you guys can use protective dome, which you'll take out a flare out of your back pocket and you wave it in the air. You can't move, but it reduces damage taken by 60%. It's really good, especially to keep your tanks who are tanking the bosses and or mobs and keeping them alive. Good survivability, good for a support. Highly recommend getting it. For the fifth symbol, I recommend defense mode. Defense mode, especially like back in the day when Skyforge was barely introduced, you didn't have to go defense mode really all that much, and now you kind of really don't have to either. A lot of people choose a support aura because it gives you that increase to damage by 20%, but I like to go to defense mode because the defense mode will go ahead and reduce incoming damage by 50%, and that's really good for everybody around you. It just keeps more survivability, more sustainability, and that's what I recommend for your support. Now, for this one, I recommend Crushing Aura, and the reason why is because your attacks with the special weapon have a certain chance to deal 932k to the enemy with energy discharge, but you and your allies affected by your support aura may also inflict this damage regardless of whether you have a special weapon or not. So you as an alchemist and you as a Lightbinder, you have a support aura, so they'll be able to get that effect no matter what, regardless of them holding a god weapon or not. For the last one on the top tree, I recommend Chain of Destruction. Energy Discharge applies Chain Lightning to the target, which deals 747k damage to 6 nearby enemies. It's just a chain, and it's just really good. And all the other ones, kind of, to be honest with you, kind of suck, especially for support. So I highly recommend getting the Chain of Destruction because, you know, it just allows you to do a little bit more damage. And as for these are pretty self-explanatory. You want Divine Healing for this one. That's the only one you could pick. Well, I mean, you could pick Irradiation, but you guys want Divine Healing, so that way you guys have more sustainability in boss fights. You want Willpower, which removes all control effects, which is pretty good, you know, CC, stuff like that. If you guys play Smite, League of Legends, you guys are aware of what crowd control is. For this Verdict, you guys can go ahead and get this in, I believe, the God of War Orbit Hall, or the, you know, the Hall of War. I don't recommend Verdict though. If you guys get this Transcendence, which will eventually come to Xbox One, I hope in the near future, take that with a grain of salt. I just hope it really does come soon, because if it does, you guys will be wanting to run Transcendence. The reason why you want to run Transcendence is because in the middle of a fight, regardless of being in god form, you can switch your character's class, which is really good. Now for the god weapon, guys, you guys want the staff, and the reason why you guys want the staff is because it does S tons of damage, it increases your speed, and it also offers invulnerability to incoming damage for a short period of time. And that's what I recommend for a support. I don't recommend the swords or the Narion's hammer, because you guys are not there to do DPS. You guys are there to protect and keep your tanks and other DPS alive. Next up on our symbol list, guys, we have the tanks. And the tanks, just want to get something out of the way. We have the Grove Walker, the Knight, and the Paladin. But with the Paladin, guys, on this one, you want to run Divine Intervention. And the reason why you want to run Divine Intervention is because it completely blocked if it exceeds 10% of character's maximum health. The character becomes immune to damage and negative effects for 4 seconds. And the reason why you want to run Divine Intervention is because as a Paladin, you already have invulnerabilities already, so you shouldn't be taking that much damage anyway. So an extra nullification to damage is really great for your Paladin. Now for Knight, it's going to be a little different. With Knight, you want to run Protective Shell, and the reason why is because as a Knight, everyone knows that you don't have that invulnerability abilities coming with a Knight. So you want Protective Shell because for every 10% of your health lost, you gain an effect that reduces incoming damage by 40%, which gives you a little more survivability with your Knight. You also want to do Reflective Barrier because it stacks on your Reflective Barrier for your Knight, which also will do the maximum amount of reflected damage is 33% of your health. So that's really, really good, and it absorbs some oncoming damage. Now for Grovewalker, you want the same thing, Protective Shell, because as a Grovewalker tank, you're just really kind of an off tank, and you're still going to be taking that damage. So as a tank, you guys also want Emblems of Destruction because Emblems of Destruction is the best. It's better than Emblems of Pain, and you don't really need Emblems of Speed or Emblems of Mercy. For your second, you want Shockwave just for that extra DPS to help your DPS burst down enemies. For the fourth one, you want Pain Shock. Using an offensive ability allows you to use Pain Shock. Pain Shock does a shit ton of damage, so I highly recommend using this. It's really, really sweet, really, really good. And for this one, I recommend Support Mode. And the reason why I recommend Support Mode is to give you and other allies that extra boost in damage, so that way you're not tanking for that long. You can go Defense Mode, but that's just situational and ultimately your decision. For this one, I recommend Reactive Materials, and the reason why I recommend Reactive Materials because enemies that attack you also have a chance to take this damage, which is 932k, regardless or whether you hold the weapon or not. So it's just really good, especially your tank. You're taking that damage, and it just helps with DPS. Chain of Destruction, we already went over that, guys. And then for this, you want Divine Healing, Willpower, and you guys are gonna want Verdict with the staff for all your tanks. And the reason why you want the staff is because it gives you that speed boost, gives you that massive damage, and it gives you that invulnerability for a short period of time. And last but not least, guys, we have the DPSers. And the DPSers, which you guys are going to want to run, which we've pretty much been over most of the symbols, and the DPSers you're pretty much going to build them pretty much the same, is Emblems of Destruction, Shockwave, Emergency Maneuver, and Protective Shell. Let me go over this real quick. Protective Shell, the reason why you guys want Protective Shell is just in case your tank loses aggro. It just gives you more sustainability as a DPS, because as a tank and a support, they depend on you to destroy bosses and or mobs. Pain Shock for that extra DPS. Support Mode, so that way you can give other DPSers some of that power boosting stuff and or yourself. Reactive Materials also, just because, you know, as bosses attack you, you will do that extra DPS to them by chance. And then you got Chain of Destruction because it chains. We do have Divine Healing, which will give you that sustainability in a battle. Willpower, which removes crowd control effects. And this is really situational for your DPS. You know, you guys can either go Transcendence or Verdict. I do recommend Verdict though, because once you guys do unlock this, when you guys are in the middle of a boss fight, you pop it, that's instant ultimate up, and you guys will be able to spam that on a boss. So it's really good. And I believe also you can use Verdict and PvP, so I mean that's really good too. And it consumes 20 faith, but I believe it's going to be worth it when it all comes down to it. Now for the last one, is what I recommend is Narian's Hammer, because if you guys have high might, this does tons of damage. It's ridiculous. You're going to want to give this to all your DPSers, unless you guys prefer the staff. The staff does decent to great damage, but it also gives you that invulnerability and that speed boost. So this is really situational, and it comes down to your decision on what you want to run. Other than that, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this guide. If you guys did, don't forget to drop a like, and also comment in the video, guys, what you guys think of the guide and what guides you guys want me to do in the future. Other than that, guys, your homie Xenopain out. Peace.